Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Rovers Report, where once again we're joined by Tom Wookie, and we're going to have a little bit of a dissection of yesterday's exciting 2-2 draw with top of the table Plymouth Argyle. That result puts Rovers at 5 games unbeaten in this League One campaign, and things are really starting to come together now, aren't they, mate?
Indeed, mate. Yeah, I think we should. I guess that result kind of flatters Plymouth a little bit, considering how dominant we were in the second half. It was probably the best we played all season, and they scored two pretty impressive goals, Zaz and Randall with two screamers. So, we couldn't really do much about their goals. I think, it's pleasing, and I'm still eating that humble pie because it's been a really good turnaround from the team and an impressive result against top of the league Argyle. So no complaints from me, and on to Wednesday, which I'm looking forward to seeing on the television.
Mm. Yeah, I think I've seen a few people from Plymouth sort of saying that they weren't at their best, and it was a bit of an off day for them. I think you have to consider that, but also plenty of teams wouldn't have done what we've done and go and put them to the sword. And like you said, it's definitely up there with one of our best performances of the season. And something that excites me actually is that the Mem's becoming a bit of a fortress again. We had those couple of dour years where the Mem back what I remember when I was a kid, the Mem is somewhere no one wanted to come. And when these big teams would come down in League One, we'd host them, and you'd be confident going into these games. And I think it's just a credit to Barton and the squad is that the confidence that's within it at the moment means that we don't fear anyone. And this, for me, it's great to see, isn't it, mate, that the fans are behind the club again, and everything's starting to tick now.
Exactly, mate. It sounded great on. I was watching live follow, so it sounded fantastic in the stadium yesterday. I know the attendance was smaller than our previous maximum capacity, but it's always a nice game against Argyle as well. I know they kind of consider us a rival. I wouldn't say that feeling's quite reciprocated, but two big clubs in the league, I'd say, and the Green Army, as we know, are incredibly vocal, and they have a very impressive away following. So it was a spectacle, a great advert for League One actually. Two teams sort of going at it in respective halves. I think it was a great game to watch for a neutral. And to be honest, for Rovers fans as well, I think as I said, we probably deserve to win. I know Barton put that on his socials after the game. I think Roster had a chance cleared off the line. I was speaking to you about that earlier. It's easier said than done, but I think he should just blast it, side foot it straight into the near post rather than hitting it to the back post. Although that was a good clearance off the line. Bobby Thomas hit the post as well. So I think that result kind of flatters Argyle a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's like you said there, I think Rossiter had another fantastic game. I think Gordon was excellent as well. But if we start and let's sort of do a little bit of a segment on Ryan Loft, because if you cast your mind back to when he signed, he was a bit of an unknown quantity. He obviously had scored goals for Scunthorpe in a very poor Scunthorpe team, but he joined Rovers, and I think initially he was almost a bit of one of those sort of banter players. And from day one, you could see he was still quite raw. He's not that young, but he was quite a raw striker. He was very mobile, ran around a lot. I think people labelled him as a bit of a workhorse. But something now which you have to say is he still has that, and it's really useful for the squad. But he looks so much sharper, doesn't he? And technically, I think he's come on leaps and bounds, and to the point where he's almost one of the first names on the team sheet now. And I was on the train earlier, just sort of thinking about what's happened to make him come to this point. And I think for me, there's a few factors. Is he's obviously had a full pre-season to sort of understand the way Barton wants to play, and I think it might be worth considering that Andy Mangan's obviously had him for the whole of pre-season, and he's been able to teach him a few little tricks. He looks cleaner now. His finishing looks better. He's sharper on the ball, and I know I was saying to you earlier, I think it'll be interesting for people to hear these stats. Is that in our 5-game unbeaten run, out of a possible 450 minutes, he's only missed 20 minutes. And if you want to break it down into sort of his contributions, he effectively has won us 4 points, mate, because he got that penalty against MK, which was converted, and then he obviously set up Collins's equaliser yesterday. So
yeah,
he's doing fantastically, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly, mate. And that finish against Swindon midweek was filth. that, and it was just indicative of the confidence that he has. At the moment, it's polar opposites to the end of, well, I wouldn't say the end of last season, but perhaps the first couple of months. It's yeah, as you said, he's pulling the first name on the team sheet along with Collins. It's just someone on the forum I was reading, he doesn't play well with his back to goal. I completely disagree with that. He's actually created a couple of chances. The penalty at MK when he had his back to goal, and he won that penalty for us. One of the 3 points. I know Ever took the penalty, but Lofty obviously won it. I think he's a completely different player to the one who first joined. He's arguably recouped that 50 grand already. I think it's hopefully a sign of more to come as well, because that's 5 GA in 15 league games for him now. Return of 33%. That's pretty decent, and obviously it's complementing Collins really well. That second goal yesterday was impressive. Great little flick from Lofty, and that finish from Collins isn't easy as well. It was sort of sat up to him on the volley to hit that before the defender comes across. That's just I know I'm sort of segueing into Collins here, but that's just the way he is. I can't really describe it. He's just able to get to the ball before any of the defenders. When the ball's on the deck, in the air, I know we've spoken about him enough probably, but it's another impressive return from Collins, and I'm glad we have him on a 3-year deal, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at Lofty's stats, they're very good, but it's not outstanding sort of Collins levels. But then you've got to think, if you pair that with Collins' records, Collins is going to be looking at sitting at sort of 15 to 20 goals. If Lofty can get 8, 9, 10, that's that's absolutely, it's plenty for the strike partnership.
We have one of the best strike forces in the league. Easy. End of story. And I just saw on Twitter, I can't remember who tweeted it. Obviously I would give credit to them, but the Loft, Collins, and Marquis have already scored more goals than Hanlon, Ayunga, and Daly did 2 seasons ago in that relegation season. We're 15 games in, we're third the way through the season. And to think that Marquis has actually perhaps been a little bit disappointing as a signing as well, it just comes to show how well Collins and Loft are doing. So, hopefully it's a sign of more to come as well from both of them.
Just before we sort of touch on the formation, Matt, I think there's something to be said, and I know we've been proponents of this sort of from the start of the season, is patience. I think I was just saying to you that you look at a lot of our players that are performing at their best now. When they initially came in, there was quite a lot of doubt around them. I think Coots especially. I remember a couple of the games, people were saying he's past it, his legs have gone. And now, like we say, he's one of the most crucial cogs in the machine. And then you look at Collins, was similar, obviously struggled to score. And I think it does just sort of show that you do need to give them a bit of time, let them bed in, let them understand Barton's system, because it's clearly working. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How, Rovers fans have a tendency to jump to conclusions. That might be football fans in general, but if you give them time, they tend to pay you back.
Yeah, and the player who epitomises that trend for me is Rossiter, who had an absolutely brilliant game yesterday. Again, he's been, fantastic since he came back from that suspension. Maybe he needed that. I don't know. I know he was injured slightly in pre-season. Perhaps it was taking him a little while to get into the swing of things, but it was absolutely fantastic yesterday, here, there, and everywhere. We know he's not going to be a box-to-box or Gerrard scoring 30-yard screamers, but we know that he complements Finley well and Evo well, who also I'm really pleased to see is back to his usual self after the start of the season. So Roster, he's showing why Joey's brought him in, and could have scored the winning goal yesterday. I'm just pleased with everything seems to be ticking over really well. I think Gibson could be annoyed with himself, and if he visibly was when Randall scored the second goal, he could have cleared that. First goal, he can't really do much. It's a bit of a Zaz magic that we sort of become accustomed to after seeing him play in League Two last season. I guess another good result in that formation of a 4-3-3 as well. I know we were going to touch on that. And it seems to me that we've temporarily abandoned the slight obsession with the 3-4-3. I don't know when Barton would like to bring that back, but obviously if it's not broken it's not fixed. It's not broken. Don't need to fix it. So yeah, need to get that the right way around, mate. You're going to edit that out for me.
Yeah, I might leave that one in, mate. But I know exactly what you're saying, mate. And yeah, it's interesting actually because I think we quite often played Lofty as a lone striker, and I know yesterday
Yeah,
Collins was a bit more out wide, so you could potentially say that Lofty was a lone striker. But I think that partnership and just sort of having them two, if you're playing a three at the back, it's going to be hard to fit them in with as many midfielders as well. So I think like the four at the back just really suits us at the minute. It allows the players that are high on confidence to play in the team. And I think Loft probably he plays a bit more of a disciplined role than Collins in the sense that I think Barton's keen to get him on the press, to be that man who leads the press, and he does it fantastically well. And I think with the midfield behind him, you've obviously got Evo, who's got creativity, and I just think the formation is really well balanced, and I would be very hesitant to change that. But they might have worked on it in training, and I'm sure Barton would have a plan for it. But it just seems like it's natural to the players, doesn't it? And I don't think I'd be messing with that.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree. It just seems to be a natural equilibrium at the moment. And you mentioned that Gordon had another good game yesterday. There's been a few on the bounce for him now. Kel Surprise, it's happened as soon as they've moved him out to play fullback rather than at wing back or in the three as a centre half effectively. You clearly see that it was not like he was out of his depth; he was just completely out of position. And I always used to bang on about square pegs and round holes at the start of the season. It seems to me that we're actually playing players in natural positions now, which is pleasing. I just hope that we don't go away to teams like Wendy and start playing with five at the back with players out of position again, because we have this momentum now and we have to use it. End of story. You can't afford to lose 2 or 3 on a bounce in this league. I don't really care against whom. It's simple. You gotta pick up as many points as possible in every game. So it's a good start to a tough batch of fixtures. I thought it'd be a point against Argyle. I'm pleased we got one. I think I initially predicted a loss on Wednesday against Wendy, and I think we could actually go to Derby and pick up all 3 points, but we'll see.
Yeah. Just one man who won't be playing on Wednesday or on Saturday is Jasper, who has obviously returned to his parent club, Fulham. And I thought it would just be interesting if we talked over this because, I think there wouldn't have been much confusion around the situation if he hadn't responded to the Rovers post. I think the quotes from Barton is that, he was sort of deemed to not be happy with the amount of minutes he was getting. And I think probably it coincides with the arrival of Scott Sinclair. So you look at Barton's quotes, and this is direct quote. He says, "We've got Sinclair. We keep moving forward. We made the decision." So that's interesting to me because initially the Rovers post made it sound like, Jasper's made the decision himself. But I think Barton's probably just said that if you're not on board with this, if you're not buying into it, then just go back to your parent club.
Do you think perhaps it was the way Jasper had dealt with his lack of minutes forced Barton to sign Sinclair? Or do you think Sinclair was kind of through the? I know it obviously we started speaking to him after the window closed, so it didn't. There was no natural coincidence, but I think it's an interesting one. It's obviously clear that Sinclair, the signing of Sinclair has maybe sort of pushed Jasper back to Fulham. It's quite, I guess it's not too much of a surprise I guess on face value, but he was obviously a very talented player. We saw that little cameo away at Exeter, how impressive he was. But obviously there's two sides to every story, but it does. I do trust Barton's judgment when it comes to players. Having obviously brought in a complete new cohort since he came into the club, so I think it's an interesting one. I'm sure he'll have a very good career, at least in Premier League 2 and then probably in the lower leagues. But I think if you're not willing to fight for your place, then that's fair enough. But it is interesting that Jasper said that was not the reason why he was no longer with Rovers. I guess it's one of those that you never really will ever find out about, but you can't help but to speculate really on it.
Yeah, mate. I think to be honest, it's pretty clear for me what's happened, and I don't think it's anyone's to blame for this. I think Barton's probably said to him, "Look, you're not in the team at the moment. Stay, and if you want to prove yourself to me, train hard, and you might work your way back into contention." I think Jasper's probably thought, I'm better than this, but he thinks he's worthy of a start. But Barton's, like we said, Barton's very keen on this togetherness of the unit, and it's that
Mm.
if you don't buy into it, then we don't need you here. And I think probably with the arrival of Sinclair, Barton probably knew that that was coming for a week or so, and he probably just said to Jasper, "Look, if you're really not committed to playing here, then we have no issue with you sort of packing your bags." I don't. I think there's a potential for it to be made into a story. I think people are using the attitude sort of pointing towards that as an issue. I think potentially he wasn't happy to fight for his place. We saw it with Luke Thomas. There was a big argument there, and I think you do run the risk of that with Barton. But in the same way, it can cause issues. It's what makes the team brilliant. So as you were saying
Mm.
there, I trust his judgment on it, and I think given a couple of weeks, no one will be speaking about it. I think, like you
Mm.
said, he's obviously not going to be able to go out on loan now until January, but it's a bit of a shame for me because, like you said, he definitely showed promise, and a player like that's always useful to have coming off the bench if you need a bit of flair. But it doesn't concern me in terms of the squad depth. I think we've got adequate replacements for him, and if he's going to cause trouble in the dressing room, which he may not have been, then we don't need him.
Yeah, he did manage to outlast Liz Truss though, so there's always that. Yeah, it's an odd one because Sinclair, is a like for like replacement in that regard. I know Sinclair came off the bench and played almost as a false nine yesterday, but he's naturally a winger. We all know that, having seen him play over the years. So yeah, it's an interesting one. As I said, we'll never really know the full story. It seems like there's two sides to it, and obviously there's biases either side, but I think naturally it's one of those things when it's quite easy for both sides to move on very quickly. And I think we have a better player in Sinclair.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's spot on, to be honest, mate. And as we continue the podcast, we've sort of started with not the euphoria of the brilliant performance, and then we went into Lofty, and then we went into Jasper. Now, unfortunately, it is another negative topic, but I do think it's one worth covering. And that's sort of, the past year and a half of the attendance debacle. I think if I just sort of set out a few facts of what's been happening. So, yeah, our official capacity is listed at 12,300, which I think no one's expecting us to get to that. But, this season we've been operating at around 9,300, which is a significant drop off from the official highest attendance. And even last season we were operating at about 9,700, 800. And I think Rovers fans deserve an answer to the question is where have these fans gone? Because I understand, and I think this is probably the reason they would give, is that, the safety advisory group have probably told us that we need to, look at the ground and make sure it's safe. I think with the removal of people standing at the front, that obviously takes out a few there. But it's confusing to me because, we got rid of that tent in the East Terrace, which that should open up more seating there, more standing there. So I don't quite understand where the 500 has gone, and it's frustrating because we're obviously on a roll. The confidence is high, and the morale in the fan base is one of its highest it's been for years. So from a club perspective, you want to get as many fans in and sort of entice them, and we're not able to do it. And if there was a clear statement from the club as to why this happened, I think a lot of fans might not necessarily agree with it, but at least there's some clarity. And it's just confusing for me because I don't know where these fans have gone, and I think it is frustrating a lot of fans.
Yeah, I think Tom Gorringe is going to write about this in the next program. I saw his tweet earlier. It is very odd, and it's pretty poor that we've had we've had, I guess, the odd statement about Sage, the infamous Sage, support and advisory group. So it's not ideal, and we'd probably be selling out 10. If his capacity was about 10,500, we'd be selling that out quite occasionally. Yeah, and it's missed revenue for the club. So you'd have to think, though, the club obviously, the only reason why they're doing this is because they have to adhere to Sage, which I believe is obviously an external organisation.
Mm.
I don't know. It's not. They're not part of the Rovers, not board, but they're not part of the club. So it's it's a bit of an odd one. I don't really know if any other clubs have been suffering from this problem over the last year and a half. I haven't seen anything.
Mm.
It's not linked directly to crowd trouble. I know we obviously had some pretty silly scenes against FGR and Scunthorpe towards the latter end of last season. So it's a really weird one. I hope Gorange can elaborate on it a little bit further, because it's kind of unfair on, as you said, it's unfair on Rovers fans to be sort of left in the dark regarding it, especially when that's 2,500 fans. That's 1/5 of the official attendance.
Exactly, mate.
So we're at 80% capacity at the moment, or just less actually. So it's a weird one, because games like yesterday, previously, I remember in 2017-18 season against Argyle, for example, I think we beat them 2-0, 2-1 at home, and there were probably about 11,000 people there. So, and obviously Argyle can bring a few more for their cup final as well. So, so it's a bit of a frustrating one. I can only assume there's going to be no near-term solution. But it'd be interesting to see what Tom Gorange has to say.
Yeah.
When's the next home match? It's a week Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that there is some light at the end of the tunnel for me, in the sense that I think, a lot of fans pointed to Cheltenham, where, we're not allowed pitch side spectators anymore at the Men, and Cheltenham clearly do have that. And I think the difference there is that I don't think they're necessarily, I don't know if we're not still under investigation by Sage, but I think we are, we're trying to prove to them we can manage it well. So I think that might be something that when we sort of have proved ourselves, we'll be allowed to have that again, because that would significantly increase the attendance. But yeah, it's just strange, isn't it? You think with the direction the club's going in now, I know Gorange is very keen to streamline the sort of processes of the club, and attendance is one that you think will be at the top of the priorities. But yeah, I mean, like you said, hopefully we'll see some sort of communication in the next couple of weeks. I think, yeah, just before we go then, mate, we've obviously got a busy week ahead of us. We've got Sheffield Wednesday coming up in midweek, and then it's away to Derby on Saturday. I'm feeling quite confident, to be honest. I have to say that I think prior to this, if I could have worked the games another way round, I would have had Plymouth at the end of this run and Derby to start it, because obviously Plymouth, for me, looks the hardest game. But having come away with a 2-2 draw, I think we should go into Wednesday not fearing them. I think I'd probably go with an unchanged team, to be honest. I might swap out Hall for Gibbons, or potentially, I don't think Coots is going to be available, is he? So maybe
no, it didn't seem like he was fit at all yesterday. I think he was walking around with a boot on.
Yeah, so for me, it would be one or two changes. I think Barton should tell them, go and have a go at them. Obviously, be smart and pragmatic. Don't just go all guns blazing, but we've proved that on our day we can match the best teams in this division, and we should have got 3 points on Saturday. So yeah, for me, go out there, play the confident attacking football, and see where it takes us.
Agreed, mate. I mentioned before about the sort of self-victimization sort of tactic that we've had a couple of times so far this season. Maybe not Pompey, but definitely at Ipswich, I thought was pretty poor, to be honest. So I just hope we don't go to, obviously Wendy are a very big club for this division. And they can spend a lot of money. I just hope we don't go there and sit back and play five at the back with players out of position. I agree. I think it should just be an unchanged team, perhaps with Gibbons instead of Hall. So yeah, I'm confident, but at the same time, I think we have to respect Wednesday. They're doing very well, third in the league. I know they drew yesterday, but they're third in the league. Barry Bannon's, waving his wands. He's a magician in midfield. So
that sounds a bit dodgy, that, mate. Barry Bannon waving.
Yeah, no weird intentions from that. He's a magician. I've been a big fan of his for a long time.
Yeah.
Surprised he sort of stayed with Wendy during their fall to League One. So I'm just loving that. It's he's a magician. We all know that. I know he's getting on a little bit now, but he's someone that I would. He's the only player I fear in the team. I know they've. Is Lewis Gregory still with them? I believe
so. Yeah.
He's obviously scored a few in League One before. So they always have a good team, but so do we. I know that sounds a bit weird considering a few weeks ago I was saying that some of the new signings weren't looking too great, but it's being a football fan is being fickle as well. So I think I'm sort of happy for us to go there and give it a good go and see how it goes. Because if we want to be pushing for top half, it's the sort of game where we can go into it with confidence and hopefully take away something. I'd take a point now quite happily. But I think I'm interested to see what Barton does. And he's hoping that all the gases to go up to Hillsborough come back happy, including yourself, Mush.
Yeah, mate. I'll be making my way over from Manchester. Are you going to have it on the box then?
I'll have it on the box. Yeah, we have Sky in my house in Bath, so I'll be watching it, mate. I think we're going out afterwards, so it'll be conducive to a decent prees.
Yeah, mate. I'm really looking forward to it, actually. And I think considering it's on a Wednesday night in the distance, sort of 700-800 fans already have bought their tickets. We could be looking at 1,000. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I think we'll probably have some sort of reaction for it on the channel, whether that be me sort of doing an initial one from near the stadium or if we hop on maybe on Thursday or something. Mm-hmm. So thanks again for coming on, mate. Thank you guys for watching it. If you've enjoyed it, give us a like. As always, let us know your thoughts, your opinions. Drop them down in the comments below. And we'll see you later. So cheers again, mate.
Thanks, mate.